And the first question is, why did you start with grassroots activism? Were there special cases that you thought had to be addressed?
Hello, nice to be with you and nice to answer your question as always. Why? I mean, it's a difficult question because maybe it's connected to kind of personality I am, and yeah, I've always been a person who wants some changes in the society, and I think the most visible and the biggest challenges were social ones in Lithuania. For many years, we have lived through the transformation period from state socialism to modern liberal capitalism, and many people were left behind, and many people had struggled, and so I faced the same economical and social problems in my family and in this environment in my among my friends and relatives. So I worked with trade unions a lot on social issues, on a bettering of on increasing the standards of living for just ordinary workers in supermarket shops and other in factories and in service in different services. So I worked a lot with left-wing, so to say, activism on social issues, many social projects. And now I've become also kind of founder of green movement in this country, to say modern green, because in the beginning of independence 30 years ago there was a strong green movement which then declined, and now, let's say 10 or more years ago, we had another wave of green politics, and I was part of it, and I was co-founder of the Farmers and Green Party, and I think we managed to do quite some substantial things in this country. Of course, we never fulfilled the dream to build a real green party in this country. It's very difficult. The society is not that much oriented towards environment and it's more about longing and seeking for social justice. And I was also, as I told you, quite active in this. Being in politics, if you don't try to only to adapt to some new political circumstances and you forget what you really fight for, then it's a bad strategy. But sometimes people can combine this and they pay some price for it, like it happened to me because of standing for some minority rights last year. But I think it's important then that activists who go to politics, they do not forget their roots.
Can you tell me just a little bit more about what happened to you last year when you stood for some minority rights?
There was a voting on the so-called partnership law, and as a social activist, I've been always quite clear on my position that the LGBT rights should be respected in this country, and I don't think that it's a big challenge to any conservative and social traditions if we just provide some basic civic rights to LGBT people, like being in a partnership, which is not a marriage, of course. It's just a special form of civic partnership, and I think it's we should have done this law many years ago, but it was voted in this term, in my second term in parliament, and I was voting to start debating on this law, and the party, which is called Farmers in Green, they somehow started to be in a big opposition to this law, and I think it was due to motivate. The motivation for this big clash with this law was to mobilize as many as possible oppositional votes and to divide the society on some issues that, for me, I think it's not that important to put all your all your political agenda just on one or two questions. I think it's a wrong strategy, but the party made this strategy, and we had this disagreement on ideological question, and I'm thinking that it was really big mistake for the party, because they thought that they were fighting with me, but in the end it resulted in a split in the political group in parliament, and 1/3 out of 30 people, 10 people left.
Thank you for that. And now I'm going to go back to a historical question, so to speak, and ask you, when you look back on the struggle that you have made in the last 10, 15 years, has Lithuania become a better country? Has it all been worth it, so to speak?
Yes, of course. I mean, Lithuania had made a lot of progress during the last 10 years, let's say, because the first jump was when we joined the Union, and European Union, I mean, we have changed our laws, and we tried to take Western European countries as an example, and we did a lot of homework, but still we had very, very big social challenges, very big gaps in social income, in regional development, in our competitive the competitive advantages of our economy were quite weak. But during the last 10 or a little bit more years, we made big progress, and just a couple of years ago, people started to go back to Lithuania because of the salaries that were not that different from the West anymore. And they are still lower, but the difference is not that big, and we have managed to keep all necessary social services quite universal. I mean, we have challenges with social issues, with healthcare, with education, but still we have this universal public services, and we have quite competitive salaries for Lithuanians. Finally, eventually, because we didn't. For many years, we had very big emigration, and people just left the country. And I have maybe we have contributed. I mean, we as politicians during the last government, we have contributed a little bit to this shrinking gap between the rich and poor, and with some additional social programs to families. And I hope we can say that we made some positive step for history of Lithuania. I'm not sure, but I hope so.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the immigration is a very good indicator, I guess, of how it's going in the country.
After COVID, it started to grow again when this, when we had this challenges with COVID, and uncertainty. Some of the sectors closed, but still, when we look at the economical indicators, Lithuania survived COVID pandemic relatively well. We didn't have big decrease of GDP. It was something around 1%, which is very, I mean, it's very nice for European context and for the context of the neighbors of Lithuania. But still, we have many challenges, and I don't know what will be the future, because we still are in the epicenter of the many crises.
One last question connected to that is how is the atmosphere in Lithuania today between people? Is it more split since the COVID pandemic?
Yes, the split in Lithuania has grown rapidly, and to my shame, the party which I was working for many years and which I was attending and building up is participating in this dramatic promotion of the split in the society, and I don't like this split very much. It's not only about social issues or social justice, but it's also about cultural wars. Like there is a growing conservative and even radical factor in the politics, that we don't need immigrants, we don't need Western values in terms of human rights and so on. So this is a growing debate and division, and there is also a big challenge because of the new wave of immigrants from the east, from Belarus. And as you know, Belarus state is pushing many immigrants systematically to Lithuanian border. Just on the state level, they use immigration, and they use African or Asian immigrants as a tool to confront Lithuanian foreign politics. So it's a big issue in Lithuania. And of course, COVID, this division on vaccines is quite wide, and Lithuanian conservative government at the moment is struggling to persuade people to vaccinate, and it's not very easy. Formally we have 70%, but it's not a best results, and it's not the numbers in this older groups are quite low. So I think at the moment we have the worst COVID death rate in Europe.
And so in the new group, the new party group that you and others are forming, amongst other the former prime minister, as far as
yes.
I understand,
yeah.
You will be working more constructively with the government in convincing people to vaccinate and so far. Is that correctly understood?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's not only on the COVID issues, on pandemic, but also in many other spheres. We are in opposition. We have the knowledge and the skills to work in politics. Most of the members of the group are quite long, have quite long experience in politics, and we want to be a real opposition, but not in terms of provoking people to go to streets and attack police, which happened this year in Lithuania, and some parties are even using this kind of methods to confront government, and I don't think it's a good idea, especially in the period of many crises and multiple crises. We have the immigrants and pandemia, so I think the opposition should also feel a kind of responsibility for the country, not only the government.
Thank you very much, Tomas.
Thank you
for meeting us.
Thank you. Hope to see you in life.